I kind of grew up with this idea that like I'm great enough to do anything, but I'm not worthy to do any of it. I realized sports is going to be my thing. That's how I made new friends. That's how, in my eyes, I became attractive to other people. That's how I kind of removed myself from whatever was happening at home. I very quickly realized if I'm outside shooting basketball, that I don't have to worry about what's going on inside. And the next morning, he woke me up with a plate and a line. And I'd done that many times. That was not my first. But this time, when I did it, it clicked. The pain was not there. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel abandoned. I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't feel any of these things. I just felt good.
Because it shut it all off.
To be honest, there's a chance that like the drugs are what kept me from ending my own life, you know, because they were the only thing I really had to look forward to.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be? Brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Marianne Williamson.
Hello, and welcome to Powerful Beyond Measure, a podcast about radical transformation, gritty stories, and the undeniable power of second chances. I'm your host, Matt Culp, a man in long-term recovery who believes in the power of grace, grit, and growth. Each week, we sit down with real people who've overcome real struggles, from addiction to adversity. No fluff, no filters, just truth, healing, and hope. The truth is that you are powerful beyond measure, and it is time that you knew it. Our guest today is Gage Myers. Usually what we do here is we kind of go over your story, where you're from, what's your name, kind of your background, and then, you know, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Kind of is the format, and then usually we'll kind of spitball after that. So who are you, what's your name, that stuff.
So I am Gage Myers. I am from McMinnville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Small town. And kind of where I start is the same way a lot of people start, right? I come from a long line of people who might have had some issues in some form or facet, whether that's drug related, whether that's just issues overall. Luckily, I am the first person to run into recovery.
Yeah.
So my parents, you know, being an early 90s kid, my parents were together, but the story goes that something happened. They figured out that they were going to have a baby. So what do any good parents do in the early 90s?
They get married.
They get married, right? So they get married. They had a good marriage, or they had a good, you know, wedding, all of the things. And then along I came, right? And it was just the three of us for a while. And those were, a lot of times, those were some good days. And there was also a lot of bad. You know, that's where a lot of my first trauma would really start, I guess, if you would call it that. My parents would get into bad arguments, and then it was kind of whoever was losing, they would run into the room where I was hiding, and they would say, you know, Mama loves you. I'm not going anywhere. I hope you know I would never leave you. You know, my dad would say, I hope you know that you're the reason that I'm staying, you know, things like that. And that was kind of the first real piece of the intent versus impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their intention was to tell me that I love you more than anything. You are the most important person in my life. The impact was I'm responsible for their fighting. I'm responsible to fix their fighting. And so now, anytime any type of conflict comes, I have to step in. And that was a lot of my childhood.
Seems very familiar.
Yeah, that was a lot of my childhood. It got to the point where I could hear footsteps. I could tell what their footsteps sounded like by the mood they were in, you know. And I spent a lot of time being inside. Hey, let's try to do something. Y'all want to come in my room? Whatever. Just trying to keep the peace. That was a big part of it.
How old were you then?
I would probably say safely 5.
Seems like those are the 5 to 8 is where we seem like we really understand that we started experiencing trauma and we understand what happened kind of a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I would say that would be the first big part too. And during this same age, another thing that I didn't really realize until I got help, until I was in recovery, one thing that I realized too, being at that age, was that I had 2 very differing, I guess, opinions on my life on a daily basis. My mother, who was, you're beautiful, you can do anything, you're going to be the one who breaks all of these family chains. There's nothing that you can't do. And then there was my father, who was, you are those things, but we're a Myers, where we don't get good luck. Not a lot of great things are handed to us. And so I kind of grew up with this idea that, like, I'm great enough to do anything, but I'm not worthy to do any of it.
Like the shoe's going to drop at some point.
At any point.
Yeah.
And that's something that I still have today. It's something that I've really had to work on probably in the last few years, because things will be going so good and I'm looking over my shoulder saying, when is the next bad thing going to happen? And that's how I spent most of my life. That is how I spent my life all the way up until here recently.
Yeah. I did this thing called the theater of the lie. And it's pretty much the concept is, at first, is when you wake up in the morning, who do you wake up with? Like, if there was a board table of who these identities are, these masks you wear, and like when I did it, there was multiple different levels of who I am. I'm a sponsor, I'm a man in recovery, I'm a father. Like, there's all these different faces that I show up with. But one of the things I realized was the son of my father and the son of my mother, with the son of Matt Culp and the son of Shirley, were opposing and different. And they did not coordinate with each other. Like, there was other ones that did not coordinate with each other. I think at the time I did it, like, being a committed husband versus being like Romeo. Like, those were 2. So I eliminated the Romeo part,
Right.
But you can't really eliminate who you are.
Yeah.
Like, as who your dad and who your mom are. Like,
Yeah.
what they ingrained in you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you're completely right about that.
Yeah.
And that that really stuck with me a lot growing up, yeah.
What, like, after that, like middle school, like, how'd you feel in middle school, high school?
So I can tell you exactly when it changed. I
Yeah?
can tell you exactly when it changed. And it was in 2nd grade. And so, yeah, I know, a little bit earlier, but it changed in 2nd grade because going back to my parents, we, small town, we lived in a smaller community of this small town. And then we were like in the backwoods of this smaller community in this small town, right? And so whenever I started school, it seemed as if, at least from my perspective, a lot of the kids kind of knew each other, and a lot of the parents knew each other. It just seemed like there was a lot of connection, and then there was me. And I didn't really have a lot of placing, right? Even within my own family. It's never that I didn't think my family didn't love me. It was never any of that. But it was just, I was just kind of different, going back to even when I was a kid and on my father's side of the family, you know, being a pretty boy when you're a kid in McMinnville, that's just kind of different, right? And and I think a lot of times, specifically this side of the family, didn't 100% know how to handle that. You know, I can remember being young and crying at Thanksgiving or Christmas and them calling me sissy boy and saying, you know, if you better get him under control. He's going to be a sissy when he's older. And, you know, just kind of making fun of me and just never really feeling like I belong. But come to second grade, it was probably a little bit before that I realized that I was good at sports. And I go to second grade. It's the first year that you could play sports in any type of organization, basketball specifically. I'd played t-ball and stuff like that. But I was one of the younger ones, and I did well. And I did well for a couple games. And then whenever I went to Thanksgiving that year, it wasn't sissy boy. It wasn't kind of picking at me. It was, hey, I heard you had a game this Saturday.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard that you're doing really well. When do you play again? Hey, how many points did you have? And so it was kind of right then that I realized sports is going to be my thing. No matter who I am when I'm home alone in my room, if I do three things, if I'm good at sports and I make good enough grades, people will like me. And that's really when it changed right then. And I really took a hold of that.
I think I don't know if that's common, but I know that there's a commonality between boys. I just know men, but boys doing sports, and then when the sports end out of high school or out of college,
Yeah.
we just dive. Dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
That happened to me.
I mean, I was on house arrest outside of high school, and I was allowed to play baseball. And that was the only thing still holding me together. After that, dude, it just went.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went downhill.
Yeah. If you were to look at my life, there's definitely a trend of when I'm active and playing sports and when it's not there.
Not
for
there,
sure.
yeah.
Because that was my whole identity. There was not necessarily any parts of Gage that was there. It was sports. That's how I made new friends. That's how, in my eyes, I became attractive to other people. That's how I kind of removed myself from whatever was happening at home. And so I really, really delved into that.
I didn't really realize until I was in recovery, maybe my first year, and I've been in a bunch of treatment centers, but I didn't really realize that what you're speaking of is codependency. Like I thought, like everybody else, that codependency was, if I go somewhere, I need you to go with me.
Right.
Yeah. Like that's baseline of what it is. But like doing those things, like trying to perform at a certain level so that your home life is okay and that people like you is a form of codependency.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm okay, you're okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that early thing, right?
Yeah.
Of as long as I'm okay and I can make sure you are okay, and then the house is okay.
The house is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did it by sports, but I did it by performing for like my dad's business and like being, making sure the house and the land and all that was took care of. Like that stuff was like, the expectations were very high of me.
Yeah. And I think for me, because again, on two individual bases, my father and my mother were great people, right? But when you're in a small town and everybody doesn't just know your parents, but they know your grandparents, they knew their grandparents, and all this outreach, I felt as if I was going to do the things that I wanted to do, such as break a lot of these chains, I had to go from here to here. And being a kid, you don't really, I mean, if you're being honest, there's no way to actually do that, right?
No.
But that was my way, that I could gain a larger amount of respect. And so that was what I played for, you know. Before we would have games, whether it was baseball, whether it was soccer, whether it was basketball, no matter what it was, I would look to see who was in the crowd. And if I seen somebody important in the crowd, I mean, you can guarantee that, I mean, I was playing to gain their attention, to gain their respect.
Who would be there? Like your family or a girl or a
It could
scout?
be, it could be, yeah, it could be them. It could just be a prominent member of the community.
Really?
Yeah. Whatever I could do.
That's a lot of pressure, Gage.
Yeah. And I did that all the time. Because again, I feel as if I spent my whole life just trying to move forward. Just trying to do something to break the chains. Because again, from a very early age, my family said you were going to be the one to do it. And it didn't feel like pressure at the time. Later in my story, it would be the cracking point. But at that time, it was just, this is how I do it. And so I'm going to be the best. And there was a component of it too, that you might understand that while I'm on the court or I'm on the field, nothing else matters.
It all disappears.
Money doesn't matter. Food doesn't matter. Clothes do not matter. It's me versus you. And if I outplay you, then I just outplay you. None of these other things are relevant.
Yeah, it's everything disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to learn how to do that without sports.
Yeah. I actually figured out that you bring that up. That was my very first addiction, was escapism.
Yeah.
Because my father brought home a basketball goal. He'd found it on one of his job sites, brought it home, set it up. And I very quickly realized if I'm outside shooting basketball, that I don't have to worry about what's going on inside. And I would be out there all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it would before school, after school, in the rain, in the snow.
Yeah.
I'd have a flashlight sitting up there in the dark. It did not matter. And I can actually remember being so far into whatever it was I was portraying, whether I was playing against Allen Iverson or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, and hearing somebody talk, and it's like pulling me out of that. I mean, that escapism was for sure my first addiction.
I did the same thing. We had a basketball goal, and I was out there so much, dude, before school, after school. I used to do this thing where I would just shoot free throws, just like over and over and over, like see how many I can make out of 10, see how many I make out of 10, and just, I would disappear out there. I would stay out there till late. I mean, my parents are a little different. Like, they drank and stuff, so like we didn't eat at my house until like 11 p.m. or something. Not a normal household. Yeah, so I would just be out there, playing.
Was it just you while you did this?
Mm-hmm.
See, fortunately, at some point I had a cousin come around, and his parents were pretty well in the same position as ours, and we had pretty well made a bond.
Well, I thought you meant like a sister, sibling, or brother, but no, I had a best friend, a neighbor.
Yeah,
he lived next door. We did it together. He skateboarded a lot. I played basketball. He skateboarded.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he used my driveway.
Yeah, me and my cousin would be out there, and we pretty much we're going to make it. Yeah. Like, I mean, we have no choice. This is what we're going to do, and we took that serious.
Yeah. I
mean, we really practiced.
Somebody should have told you and me that we're about 5'8".
Yeah. Yeah. I wish somebody would have, because I was very delusional for a very long time about what I thought I was going to do in life.
Well, somebody should have said, "Hey man, you don't have, unless you weigh 235 and you're running a 40 flat, like, you're not going to the NFL."
Yeah.
But you could play pro baseball.
Yeah.
And if someone would have set me down and said that, I'd have been like, I love baseball. Let's do that.
Yeah.
I play baseball every year, but it was like, it's what I loved and not what I wanted to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
No, because I wish somebody would have done that. And it's easy to sit here and say that now.
If they would have told me, I wouldn't have listened.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to say it now, but up until I was around a sophomore in high school, I mean, I really thought that eventually these offers were going to come and I was going to get noticed. And there were some life things that happened that, I'm sure we can get into, but up until that point, I mean, there was no plan B. That's what I was going to do.
What happened with the life things or whatever?
So basically, life was pretty well up until my freshman year of high school. And, I figured out that I was good at sports. I actually got offered to try out for the U14 Team USA. I got offered to go to the Dominican Republic to play baseball in a summer thing for Team USA. Again, never would get to actually do that. But just to have the pieces of paper, like that was cool enough for me, And I started high school. And again, you got to think about it like this: small town, small community, go through a K through 8. And then in high school, it's kind of a big ordeal because there's only one high school, even though there's all these little schools around.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was the first time that I was really going to have my chance to make my mark, right? I was going to be around everybody, not just my little school, things like that. And I started my freshman year in August. And in September, that's when the worst financial crash or crisis happened, at least in my lifetime. And so I went from being like very lower middle class to just poor. I mean, very poor. I was one of the only kids that rode the bus, had no money.
What is this, like 08?
Yeah.
So you're 4 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was really, being poor was tough. But doing it in a place where it seemed like that didn't affect anybody else, that was tough. All the other kids didn't seem to have my problems. Their parents had their jobs. They were picking them up from school. They were eating lunch. They were doing these things. And it became really hard, Fortunately, whenever I turned 16, I had some family members come together, help get me a car. And I can remember calling my dad after about a week or two, saying, hey, I need some gas money, My dad's like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have it. And I was like, oh, okay, And there was a lot of times that being that young, you got to make decisions that I don't know that you're ready to make, choosing between gas money to get home or going to McDonald's to get food. There was a lot of times that I would pick the food and then I would go back, sleep in my car, go shower in the locker room, hurry back out before anybody would see me, leave the school, go park somewhere for a little bit, and then drive in the next day as if I'd been home all night. Because again, I care what people think, right?
Yeah.
I can't have anybody knowing that I'm struggling. And I did that a lot, I did that for a while. And that's when I figured out this whole college thing, going to play sports, probably not going to happen because I don't have the time. I've got to figure out how to make money. I have to figure out where my next meal is going to come from. I don't have time to stay and get extra shots up.
I mean, you just didn't think like you could get a scholarship, or
No.
just kind of set in on you?
No. Well, looking back on it now, could I have? Because even after my senior year, I'm not saying I had any full scholarships, but I had places that said, if you want to come try, walk on, things like that. But you got to think at that time, that was a really hard mental thing to go through.
Yeah.
Because I'm already in a place where I don't feel like I fit in because I'm an outsider. I mean, the whole team, they all went to like the same school, and then there was me. And so I already didn't have the friendships. I already didn't have the connection. I mean, sure, I knew them, and I played ball with them basically every summer on travel teams, things like that, but I wasn't their friend. I didn't get invited to sleepovers. I didn't get invited to the movies with them. Their parents didn't sit with my parents at games. all their parents sat together and then my dad was over by himself. And so I already didn't fit in. And now that I had this other thing, it was just like, well, this just isn't going to happen. Because again, good things aren't supposed to happen, right?
Were you drinking or using at this point?
So that was the first year that I experimented. I drank and I smoked, yes, for a good while. And that stopped after a while because, basically I had a really bad hangover and some people were pretty mean to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. But there for a while, I did. And that was me trying to escape it for sure.
Yeah. You were talking about like being kind of like an outcast, like in some form. Because I was using drugs so early and alcohol and being in jail, juvenile, I kind of was an outcast myself because of that. Because, once you get to high school and you're maybe not a freshman, but I would say 10th grade, people start to party.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they start to go to senior parties and stuff like that. It's more acceptable. But like I was doing it so young that like on the kids teams that I was on, people just like, they're not going to like, they either thought that I was busy doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
he's too cool,
Yeah.
or that I just was never invited to like people's house for sleepovers and on the team because I think it was because I was the bad kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They thought this dude is wild.
That's a bad age to be the bad kid.
Yeah. Why are you doing drugs and in jail?
Yeah.
At 12,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so mine, but I actually, truth be told, mine was kind of the opposite of that.
So they were doing the stuff.
They all were doing everything. I'm telling you, there's a funny story I just told the other day. Up until that point, drugs and alcohol were never even. I was a really good kid. Church twice on Sunday, once on Wednesday, volunteering to do everything that I could.
With your parents or you just
No, just me.
Okay.
Just me. They would drop me off.
Yeah.
And I was, I was real serious about like trying to get somewhere. And I thought that when you get to high school, everybody's just ready to do something with themselves. And so when my first day of high school, I'm like, this is great. I'm surrounded by a lot of people who are trying to get scholarships, who are working to better themselves. And I sat down at lunch, again, not with friends that I'd had before, trying to make new friends, And I remember them talking about, this guy and this girl did this thing and, oh, this party last weekend was great. I got so drunk and so high and I was taken aback. I could not believe it. I thought, how are we all gonna get scholarships if we're doing this stuff, right? I was so naive.
Yeah.
I was so naive.
Yeah. How many people get a graduating class go to get a scholarship? What, 5, 10?
Yeah, not many.
Not many.
But I just thought everybody was on this same wavelength, and it was not that. And so I was kind of the outcast. And there were some other things too, I was in a relationship that was not healthy,
What's his name?
Yeah. No, so as unhealthy as the relationship was, there's a very fair chance. It's very fair to say that she probably saved my life in a lot of ways because she was very Christian and she was very by the book about things, and so that alone kept me out of a lot of trouble because it's not that I didn't want to party. It's not that I didn't want to do these things. A lot of it was either A, I wasn't invited, or B, even if I probably was, I didn't want to mess things up with her.
Like you didn't want to disappoint her.
Yeah. And so she in a lot of ways probably saved me during those 4 years because the way that I felt, I would have done anything. If I thought you were going to be my friend, I probably would have done anything. And I did on the few chances that I had.
So you graduated high school?
Graduated high school. Had good grades. Time for college again. Have no idea what I want to do because, again, a few years ago, I thought I was going to go play ball. And then another reality sets in. I start to learn about the cost of college and how those things work. And I applied to local universities. I got accepted to all of them. Even was going to have most of them paid for just because my parents didn't make enough money. But what I quickly found out was a lot of kids, their parents were helping them, and I knew I wouldn't have that. And so it just seemed to make more sense to me to stay home, go to a community college, be able to not only go for free, but they gave me money back.
Yeah.
And to just take those 2 years to kind of figure out what I wanted to do and try to gain some money, gain some momentum, if you will.
Which, like Malo?
Yeah.
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 There's nothing wrong with Malo.
No, I love Malo. I love Malo. I have 2 degrees from Malo.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I joke all the time that I guess I thought that 2 associates equaled 1 bachelor's, and it's not the math, you know?
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
What are they in?
One is just general, and the other is mechatronics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is like
Robotics,
yeah.
Yeah.
I was in Motlow running UPS. I had all these employees, and then I had Threshold. I had like 5 houses then, I guess. So I'm like, I'm in school for business degree, and I'm running 2
Right.
business. Like, what is the point?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make sense, yeah.
I didn't know you were in school then.
Mm-hmm. Well, prior to this is when was Threshold a thing? No, it was when I had a partner. It was a different name, but we had 5 houses.
Didn't know that.
But I was like Dom or Brandon, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little more like people thought I was the owner, even though.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like carry myself a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Motlow was great. Motlow was incredible, and I cut myself short on that. So I had actually met a guy just through happenstance. He had actually written a book called Breaking in the Back Door, and it's where he went to community college for 2 years, and he ended up getting I hope I don't get this wrong, but ended up getting like his law degree from Cornell.
Okay.
And so I met him. And at this time, going to Motlow, this was before they had the grants. So if you went to Motlow at this time, it was either you were poor or you didn't have the grades to get in anywhere else. And so I was kind of down about it. And he kind of reshifted my mind to be like, no, this is a good thing. I also did this. Now I went to an Ivy League school. Here's the things you can do. Join this honor society, join this club, do this. And that really shifted my perspective a lot on I can really make something of this. And I did. I spent a lot of time doing that. And it helped me a lot. I won awards through it. I won Who's Who, National Community College Student of the Year. You know,
Okay.
yeah. Helped start numerous things, traveled, doing a few different things. Motlow was great. I would recommend it to anybody. However, at that time, this one thing happened as I'm kind of gaining some momentum. Got a new girlfriend. That's going wonderful. You know, the first real girlfriend after the first one, where you're just in love and everything is incredible. I've met all these new friends. I'm doing well. And then I get a weird call that says, your mom's going to the hospital. And I thought, well, that's weird, right? Because I knew that at the time, growing up, I knew that my mom had a problem. I knew that she did the pain, the pill meal stuff. But, you don't really know per se how big of an ordeal that is. I was just mad at her for it. And I go to the hospital, and she had shut a lot of her
Organs down.
Yeah, shut a lot of them down. And this was like the day before finals. And so I'm staying the night in the hospital. This is right before Christmas. And you know, they told me to say goodbye to her. You know, this is the last time you're probably going to see her. She ended up living, and that was probably one of the more hopeful things that happened in my life, because my family at that time, my mom and my dad, were not close. You know, again, they were still together, but by no means were they really husband and wife. And whenever she was going to live, we all kind of had this light bulb idea that, oh, this could be a good thing, because she's been in the hospital for a month. She's not smoked any cigarettes. She's not had any of her pain medicine. She's not had any anxiety medicine. You know, she's essentially as clean as she's ever been.
Yeah.
And this could be a real restart. And even my dad was on board. You know, I seen a different version of him during that time. You know, he was really almost as if falling back in love with her. And it was kind of like, cool, we don't have a lot of Christmas presents this year. We don't have a lot of things, but we got a family again, you know? And that was really hopeful until my mom got home, went to one of her doctors, and her doctor said, "You've been laying in that hospital bed for a month. I know you have to be stiff. I know you have to be in a lot of pain. Let's up your pain management from this brand to this brand. And instead of 90, we're going to give you 120 a month."
Whoa.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And so, you know, it slowly started to go back downhill from there.
Do you think that your mom went there and said that, or you think the doctor said that?
The story goes that he said that. I don't want to make assumptions.
Yeah.
But that's allegedly what was told. And of course, my mom.
It happens.
Yeah. My mom's one of us, right?
Yeah.
The recovery was not around at the time, so I guess it's hard to blame, you know? You say, I need this. You say, yeah, I mean, I guess I am in some pain. And,
I mean, she went to the doctor.
yeah.
Yeah. She didn't have to go to the doctor. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
she went back to the pain clinic doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was off to the races. And I noticed things had kind of started to change. You know, her behavior kind of a little more erratic. At that time, my girlfriend had moved in with me at my parents' house. And she started saying that, you know, my mom was asking her a bunch of weird things. And she said, I swear your mom's drinking, you know? And at that time, I was just like, look, I've never seen my mom drink. Like, I think you're kind of making this up, you know? And sure enough, like, she was drinking again. And everything just kind of started to crumble. And and at that time, I myself was also had started dabbling in it. But it was purely for the party. There was not an emotional dependency on it yet. And so, lo and behold, I graduate community college. I get an apartment with this girlfriend, ready to go to Tennessee Tech. Actually had a job at UPS. Hadn't started yet, but was in the beginning processes of it, you know. And me and this girlfriend break up. And that was on me, because I was kind of in the middle of like, this is my chance to move on. This is my chance to go do something bigger. But all my friends are staying here, you know, and none of them wanted me to move. So I was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And she just decided, you don't have any feet in, you know? Mm-hmm. So she left. And that's whenever that day happened. You know, I woke up one morning. I decided, you know, I'm going to go get her back. I'm going to go try to make things right. So I hopped in my car. I drove to Cookeville, went to our apartment. She wasn't there. And that was just like too much to bear. I tried to take my own life. I wrote a will, I wrote a letter, you know, I took a conglomerate of things, and just fell asleep thinking I'm not going to wake up again. And a few hours later, I woke up, you know, pretty sick. And so I thought, well, I don't need to be here. There's nothing here. So on the way back, I look on Facebook and she was out with somebody else. And it wasn't even, like, yeah, did it hurt that she was with another guy? Like, sure. But it was more of a mental, it was hard to grasp because it was like I almost just took my life while she's out enjoying herself. And then at that same time, my father calls me and says, look, your mom's in and out. She's not coming around. She hasn't been home in a while, or she does, but then she comes home late in the night. Your sister starts school in a week. I work in Murfreesboro. I can't take her to school. I need your help. And at that time, it kind of seemed like everything I'd been working for was gone. There was no longer any chance to get away. There was no longer any chance to break away and do something. I was now going to move back home, try to raise this little girl that I didn't know. I didn't know my sister. She might have been across the hall, but I didn't know her because my parents, there's a story when I was a kid, I asked my dad for a poster from the book fair, and he kind of unraveled a little bit, saying we didn't even have the money for a water bill. We didn't have the money for electric bill. No, I can't give you $5 for his poster. And I went out into the woods where nobody could hear me. Because again, I wasn't going to be the sissy boy, right? So I had to go where nobody could hear me. And I cried and I realized, well, this is where I grow up. This must be the day, I start providing for myself. I start making my own money. She can't do it. I mean, she's a year old, she can't buy her own diapers. So me at 8 years old, I'm going to have to figure this out. And we really didn't have a relationship. And so I knew I was going to have to go home and try to do that. I drove to my friend's house and just unraveled on him, stayed the night with him. And the next morning, he woke me up with a plate and a line. And I'd done that many times. That was not my first. But this time when I did it, it clicked. The pain was not there. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel abandoned. I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't feel any of these things. I just felt good. And it was on that day that my addiction really found its form, because I said to myself, I'm not going to go without this again. And I didn't.
Pain pills?
Yeah.
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 I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was like me and my girlfriend, we were living together. We broke up and she cheated on me, and then I can't remember. It was I'm dumb. I hung on too long and tried to make it work, and she moved. It was the whole situation. But I remember that this is the only time I've ever been in like actual depression. Like I was like 7 or 8 days. I was like, just couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had already done like tons of drugs. I mean, I've done a lot of drugs, but like, I mean, I haven't even did heroin before that for a while, But which is pretty deep into addiction,
Yeah.
or deep into use.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But my brother, he had this, and I've been around meth my whole life, but he had this meth out on the table, and he was living with me at the time, and he was upset that I was doing heroin, which is a weird thing. But
yeah,
I mean, he was like, I mean, you're doing heroin. If you want to do a line, just whatever.
Right. Right.
So I did the line, and like, it was the thing. It was the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was the drug specifically, or if it was where I was.
Right.
Yeah. Because it shut it all off.
Yeah.
Nothing mattered.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Where I lived mattered. What car I drove didn't matter. The job I had didn't matter. All of it was, attachments were gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
None of it else mattered.
Yeah.
And that's where I was, because at that point, any bit of feeling that I had, anything that was attached to me was gone. I thought I could do anything and I could get through anything as long as I had this thing in my life.
Yeah. And in some way you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does allow you to do that. Like, I mean, you think I don't answer the phone now, dude. Dude, I had 0 attachments back then, dude. My whole call log was red.
Yeah.
Like, I would just disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. No attachments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. It, I don't know. It definitely, I didn't really put that together until you said that, the correlation between like how it affects you emotionally, the one day it quiets everything, you know? Because up until then, I just did a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, something changed that day.
Yeah. Because again, that wasn't the first day that I had done drugs.
Yeah.
That wasn't the first time I had experimented. At that time, I had done every drug, but it was on an experimental basis.
Yeah.
It was a party thing. It was, all these things. And it was that moment that, I knew, oh, I need this thing, right? This helps me.
How old were you then?
20.
20. And you were going to go to Tennessee Tech in Cookeville?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Fuck that girl, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She, again, she's a great girl now. She's got a family. She got all the things that she wanted and all the things that she deserved.
Yeah. That happens.
Yeah. But so I'm super happy for her. But that was
I mean, even the girl that cheated on me, we were together for 6 or 7 years. We were high school sweethearts.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just understand we were young. We were trying to play house. We weren't ready. There was a lot of fear and resentment and just unaware of what we were doing. And just, I completely forgive her for whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a thing in me that says that I don't know.
Yeah.
Which I've done some weird trauma work around it, actually. So, like, weird stuff. I had to do this, we laid a sheet out on the ground, and then I had to, set the scene of the trail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, I had to use, this stuff in these drawers, for items and for characters.
Yeah.
And then, well, what do you want to tell? It's a weird, weird thing.
Yeah. I did that in treatment, but it was for my parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was actually the day one of being in treatment.
Treatment?
That was the first group I had. I was like, whoa. This is
Journey
Tulip Hill.
Tulip Hill. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Had me hiding under a table just like I was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Had a guy and a girl acting as if they were my mom and dad fighting. Yeah. It was intense.
I've been to 9 treatment centers, and I mean, most of them do not. That's good to know that they're aware and trauma informed there.
Yeah. It was intense. That was the first group I ever had.
You might do one thing at a treatment center where you're like, okay, this is a very impactful exercise.
Yeah.
But it seems like one treatment center might have one thing,
Mm-hmm.
But if you do all of them, but it is good to know that that place is doing stuff like that.
Yeah. It was intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah. That was my first
You're
introduction.
What have I stepped into?
That was my first introduction. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wow. Okay.
I've had the most success in treatment at a state grant facility, and there wasn't a lot of therapeutic stuff going on.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
It was more rigid, more peer driven, more everything is going to go like more militant kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not uncommon at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with I was ready.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But we're not ready. A lot of us aren't ready until we go through all those good ones, and then we end up in some shitty
Yeah.
situation, you know?
Yeah. That happens a lot. Especially if you start off at, a lot of commercial insurance ones
Yeah.
and a lot of good ones. It's kind of like you don't know what you got until you have it type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's not uncommon at all.
I AMA'd all the time, dude. Yeah. This place is too nice for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a file somewhere and it definitely says that
It
for sure.
definitely
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if my file is there.
Oh, your file is at each of them. I can promise you that.
Really? Matt AMA'd on day 13.
Yeah.
We tried to talk him out of it. Matt AMA'd on day 16.
Yeah. That is
This one lady at Cadis, I was planning to go to treatment, and my girlfriend it was one of those situations. She was planning to go.
yeah.
And on day like 13, I was like, yeah, I'm going. And you can't just walk out of Cadis. You have to buzz out. Like it's a little bit of a secure place.
Right.
You can leave, but you can't just walk out.
Right.
So there's like a process where you're getting your stuff, and they're like, yeah, well, you might not want to leave. And
Yeah.
you can't just disappear. But my therapist she had came out there to talk to me. She goes, who's picking you up? And I go, Ashley. She's picking me up. We're going to do great together.
Yeah.
It's going to all work out, you know.
Yeah.
And she goes, you'll be high before the night's over. And I go, I am not. and she was right. She was definitely right. I'm pretty sure Ashley showed up with drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because why not? Yeah.
Yeah. And then she went to treatment. She did go to treatment 13 days later. You should never, I don't think they should put phones in treatment centers.
No. No. We are very anti-phones.
Anti-phones.
We are very anti-phones. And it's hard because the industry is slowly becoming
where you can have your phone the entire time.
Yeah. And so it's not fully made its way a lot into this area.
Yeah.
But if you look at the United States as a whole, it's there.
At Vanderbilt Psych, you can have your phone. And once you're like on whatever floor you're on, not in pre or whatever, but
Right.
once you're there, you can be on your phone.
I didn't want my phone.
Me neither. I
was scared to have my phone.
I don't want it just based on like mental health stuff. Like I don't want it. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Not necessarily I'm scared to. I just like I want to like fully detox from everything. You know?
Yeah. Whenever I got to treatment, and they said, we got to have your phone. I mean, I probably I think I threw it at them. I mean, I was so ready to get it away.
Just take this.
Yeah.
Thing.
Because at that point, I was already in so much debt and so much trouble. And it's not like I was getting good text anyway. I mean, there was not any good news coming. So whenever it came time to get it back, I mean, I was not in a rush at all.
So after your, what happened between that day and you getting sober?
Yeah. So I did end up moving back into my dad's. And I began raising a 13-year-old. That was good in a lot of ways for me. And it was also really confusing. There was a lot of hard times because I had to go back and get a job, right? I got a good job right off the rip. Worked in a bank, was taking care of her, doing all these things. But it's kind of like the story of my using is pretty much like having multiple personalities, like you said, wearing different hats. When I was at work, I was a good employee. When I was around family, I was a good family member. But over here, I was doing all these really bad things. And so I moved back home. I would take her to school. I would pick her up from school, take her to do things, just trying to do the best that I could. It's not that she didn't have a dad. It's not that she didn't have any of those things, but just trying to fill gaps, you know? And a beautiful thing happened where I developed a really close relationship with somebody who'd always been in my life, but I didn't know, you know? I mean, that first car ride when it was just me and her, I mean, it was kind of just like, well, so what do you want to talk about? You know, because I don't really even know you, you know? And a lot of those times were hard because when I would be at home, that's when my mom had really, really just dove head first, you know? And that's where a lot of my turmoil had kind of started because I was still trying to be that 5-year-old who holds everything together, you know? My mom would go to jail. She would call me from jail, come get me, you know. Being in a small town, I knew a lot of the police, a lot of the cops. So if she got in trouble, they would call me and say, "Hey, if you want to come pick her up, you know, from here, then we won't do anything." You know, trying to hold my dad together as well because of just knowing that he was unhappy, you know, just just knowing that this was not really what he signed up for, you know, and just trying to hold all of these pieces together that I had no business taking on, but nonetheless there I was, and those things only made my usage ramp up. And another thing that was probably really bad was I started doing what a lot of us addicts do. One of my justifications was, well, no matter what I do, I'm not as bad as her. You know, so it doesn't matter if I spend all my money on these pills. At least I didn't throw my family away. You know, it doesn't matter what I do over here because I'm not her. You know, and that led me to continue for a long time.
I don't think I ever had any of those. I think for 2 years, I thought I'd be in the trap house cooking dope and shit, and people were shooting drugs. And I'm like, well, at least I don't shoot drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to like really maintain. I mean, people are shameful about shooting drugs, and there would be girls over,
Right.
stuff like that, and I would always be like the guy, like out front, like entertaining them while people were disappearing and shooting drugs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never thought I would do it. I mean, it rapidly increased the quality of, or decreased the quality, whatever you like. It made it really bad,
Right.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine mine didn't escalate for a while because again, you know, it's like I was holding on by a string just for years and years and years. And a lot of you know, a lot of interventions took place, but really just by a higher power, you know. A lot of things staying at bay. And it seemed as if too a lot of people that I ran into that I would use with and I would do drugs with, it's like they didn't want to bring me as deep as they were.
Yeah.
You know, they really tried to take care of me. You know, for instance, the first time I said like, "Hey, I want to shoot up," you know, they said no. And then whenever finally they said, "Okay, but we'll shoot you up and you have to look away because you're not going to learn how to do it." You know, so I was around a good group of people and yeah, kind of. I mean, they tried at least. Yeah. But that was, you know, my early 20s were pretty much just trying to take care of her and trying to find my own way. My mom eventually left completely, you know, on Christmas Eve one night. Yeah, was going to the store and just didn't come back. And that's still hard today, you know. That's still hard because she's like around and in my life now. And it's kind of like I just don't want her there. I'm not mad at her. I'm not upset with her, but I just kind of learned how to not live with her in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's just easier than to reintroduce it. But yeah, me and my sister, we did everything together. I did her hair for dances. We went and picked outfits out together. I would take her and her friends out to eat, take them to hang out. Whenever she had boy troubles, I would lay in bed with her and hold her. And meanwhile, the whole time I would go into the room next door when it was all done and cry my eyes out, saying, how did I get here? And there's no way out. How do I even get out from something like this? And that's where the drugs just continued to ramp, because I mean, to be honest, there's a chance that like the drugs are what kept me from ending my own life, because they were the only thing I really had to look forward to. And that was one thing that I learned in treatment too, to kind of be thankful in a sense, because I had so much resentment against myself for getting all the way to where I was. And it kind of made me realize that if I had not had them at this time, I probably wouldn't even be alive.
Yeah.
And so not to beat myself up too bad, because I was just trying to survive.
Yeah. Most of our decisions are based on us trying to survive.
Yeah.
Or protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the break? Like, how did you get sober? What happened?
So you can say that lasted for years. Really just pills. Just, if other things came about, I mean, I certainly didn't say no,
Yeah.
whatever was around, that was my thing. But opiates just tend to be my thing. And that continued for multiple years. And then finally, I was sick, low on money, because obviously I wasn't working good jobs anymore. And coincidentally, it was my sister, who said, hey, if you, she kind of got off on a bad foot as well. And she said, hey, if you're sick, I can get you something. And, it was heroin at the time. And so I'd done that a couple times. And then she'd start saying, well, there's this new stuff out. And at the time, nobody was calling it fentanyl. Fentanyl didn't really have a name to it, but it was kind of like different colors.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that point, I was like, I know me doing pills and doing heroin and stuff's not great, but this stuff's pink. Like, that's not natural,
Yeah.
But everybody has their point. And so I finally said, yeah, I'm sick. Go get me some, bring it to me. And she brought it to my apartment. And I mean, I had been doing so much. I mean, ungodly amounts. 200 to 300 milligrams was not uncommon if I could afford it. And she brought me this itty bitty little bit.
Yeah.
And she said, you're going to do a fourth of this. And I said, well, you're crazy, like, it's not going to happen. And she said, yeah, you are. She said, and furthermore, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch you do it to make sure that you don't do anymore. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just appease you, And I did that little bit. And then about 6 hours later, I was in my kitchen, bumps and bruises all over me where I'd been falling and stumbling. And where I'd essentially blacked out. And in my addiction mind, the first thought I had was, this is great. This is great. This is what I've been looking for. And it was like all the damage that I had done in like 6 to 7 years was instantly combined into this last little bit. There was no sense of morale. There was no sense of love or justice. It was, it's nothing personal. I just got to do what I got to do to get one more. I took tens of thousands of dollars out in loans. I put my car up for collateral. I stole from family. I stole from friends. I stole from workplaces. I did everything that I could. And it wasn't because it was no longer about just like getting high for fun. It was because I needed it now. But also, I knew I was in trouble because I had went on for about a year. And with the pills, I kind of had this like reoccurring thing that would happen. Life event would happen. I would hit rock bottom. I would take a Friday, Saturday, Sunday to try to detox myself. Wasn't fun, but very doable. Monday, I would be fine. No, normally, like by that next Friday, I was back at it. But in my mind, I could at least detox. And so the job I was working at that time shut down for Christmas. There was a week. And I thought, well, I've got pretty bad off on this stuff. I'll go to my dad's house. I'll detox there because it's away from everything. And I'll just kind of hit restart, you know. And I got about 20 hours in. And it was the most unbearable, not just physical pain, but just mental blockage that I've ever had. And I remember the next morning, whenever my plug had texted me, for whatever reason, he was up early that day. And I left the house, and my sister chased me out the door, you know, trying to get me to stop. And I remember driving and thinking, I'm in trouble. This is not like something that I have ever faced before. This is not something I can do on my own. And at that time, I didn't know anybody who had ever got clean. You know, I didn't know about treatment centers. The only people I knew that went to treatment was Brandon Novak and Steve-O and, you know, celebrities. And so I just kind of thought that, like, that's all that it was. And so I don't have Instagram anymore, but if I log on there, I still have direct messages to them. You know, hey, please, can you help me? You know, I don't know what to do, but can you help me? And, you know, none of them ever responded back. But I just thought, oh, well, this is just how I have to be forever. And that was a really dark place to think that I found myself in something that I could not get out of. And there was nothing I could do on my own power anymore.
To go to treatment?
Yeah. Or just to stop. Because I didn't even know how to stop.
No, did you go to treatment after that?
Yeah. So I had gotten some trouble. And I'd gotten in trouble before many times. But either I got out of it with a slap on the wrist or whatever. But I'd finally gotten some pretty big trouble. One of them specifically being in McMinnville. And that was kind of always my scapegoat, was I'd never gotten in trouble there. So nobody really knew how bad I was. And I finally got in trouble. And that night was pretty well a turning point because I know the cops, you know, I grew up with them. And so I'm expecting them to be like mad at me and to like be mean to me and to, you know, why are you doing this? And it was more like they just felt bad for me. You know, they were so kind to me. And it was almost more like they were ashamed that they even had to do this.
Yeah.
And that was a wake-up call. And I got out of jail. And coincidentally, my sister, you know, had made some calls to some people and ended up finding a family friend that worked for a treatment center. Said, hey, you have to help my brother. You know, he's on a bad path. And so she reached out to me and said, you know, hey, look, I can get you some help. And of course, even the idea of help before, I always had excuses, right? I've got a job, I've got bills to pay.
Take care of my sister.
Yeah, I've got to take care of my sister. That was a big one, you know, whatever I had to do. But I had no more excuses. I'd sold everything in my apartment. I'd lost the job. Any day now, my car was coming to get repoed. I had all these charges hanging over my head. And I had no choice but to just say, I guess, you know, like, sure. Because I'd been to detox before, but I hadn't been to treatment. And really, even detox, I didn't go to detox. I went to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, well, you know, let me make some calls or whatever. And she called me back, said, yeah, we can get you here. And of course, at this time, I'm kind of angry at the world. And I said, yeah, well, there's one thing. I don't have a job. I don't have insurance. How do you expect for me to pay for this? And she said, oh, it's already taken care of. I said, well, be cool if you told me. How is it taken care of? And she said, well, there's been a sponsor reach out and they're going to pay for your stay. And in my mind, I just thought, well, what a crock of shit.
Yeah.
Like, what is this pyramid scheme? Like, who is this rich person who doesn't even know me, who just has thousands of dollars to toss away? Like, what is this? What do they get in return? But again, I had no reason to say no because I had nothing else. And so, reluctantly, I went. And thank God that I did, because I would later find out that obnoxious, rich prick that I thought was there was actually my aunt, who had taken just about all of the personal money that she had to put me through treatment. And she knew that if I knew it was her, that I wouldn't go. Because she's like my mom. I love her more than just about anybody in this world. And I would not have went. I wouldn't have. And so she hid behind the curtain and paid for me to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was a big realization too, because a lot of times people ask, like, how did you do it one and done? Right. Number one, I spent 8 years looking for one day. I didn't know that it was even there.
Yeah.
And so it's not that the desperation wasn't there. It wasn't necessarily that I wasn't ready. A lot of the times.
The accessibility wasn't there.
The accessibility wasn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't even have people to ask. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I mean, I was ready.
Yeah. It sounds like when you were talking about it, it's like all the excuses were eliminated.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had been ready for a while, even before it got ramped up. Like if somebody would have came to me and said, here's an opportunity to hit reset on your life, I probably would have taken that ticket.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there. And then whenever I got into treatment, or actually on my departure from treatment, when I got kicked out, that's when they told me that it was her. That was a realization that I can't mess this up.
Yeah, the people still care.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
One of the things that helped a lot when I was in treatment is, I mean, again, I was in upwards of $20,000 of debt, and that's just what I knew they were coming for. There was more out there. That's not counting the car and all the other things. And I had kind of asked my therapist, like on the way out one day, like, hey, if you don't mind, like, because the only person I really cared about was my aunt. And I didn't even know she had paid for treatment at this time. I just really loved her and respected her and said, hey, by the way, if you want, if you'll call my aunt and tell her that, like, I've got a court date in a month and that there's some stuff she don't know about, and just kind of tell her what it is, like, I'd appreciate it. She's like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And the next day she goes, hey, we've got a family therapy session set up and you're going to tell her all that. Yeah. And I was like, that's not what I asked, and that was one of the more freeing moments, because I sat there and cried my eyes out and told her all the things I'd done.
Yeah.
And she just basically said, we'll get through it.
Yeah. I did one with my sister the last time. I did ones with my mother, but the last one with my sister was different. It was special. It was something. Yeah.
And it wasn't that she wasn't sitting there saying, I'm going to help you get through this, because, she didn't go through and pay any of my stuff off, but it was just her saying that it's going to be okay, and that was a relief to me, because I finally realized in that moment that I had been projecting my own hurt onto the emotions of others. I had been taking my own hurt that I felt towards myself and saying, well, they will be disappointed.
Yeah, just assuming.
Yeah, just assuming that like I would be a screw up in their eyes. And whenever all that was eliminated, I really had the opportunity to look at myself and go, can I forgive myself? Can I look myself in the mirror and see where my feet are and say, this is where I am. Can I forgive myself and move forward and not worry about others?
Okay. So leaving treatment.
Yeah. Spent 60 days in treatment. Was supposed to be there longer. And
Something with girls.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could not stop. I mean, I couldn't. You know, I got into treatment. And again, you got to think I've had this low self-esteem for all this time, you know.
Yeah.
And then I get into treatment. And the first thing is I was in a therapy session. And somehow or another, I don't remember now, but she brings up the fact that in the girls' house, there's like 2 or 3 girls fighting over me. And I go, really? And she's like, yeah. And I go, which ones?
Yeah.
You know, like, do you want to share?
Which
you know?
one? Which one won?
Yeah, like which ones were they? You know, and I was like, oh, you know, and so I had some trouble with that, and it wasn't anything crazy, passing notes, you know, but just enough to cause trouble, and even more than the females, I was just causing trouble. I really was. I was one of those. I would read the rules, and I would find out where the rules ended and where a new one began, and kind of hang out in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so kind. They gave me so many chances. You know, they kept telling me what the consequences were. But at that time, I hadn't seen anybody just get kicked out. And also, I don't know the rules of treatment. I don't know what you can do. I don't know what you can't do, you know? And so I just like kept pushing. I just kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing. And, yeah, they finally kicked me out. And that was that was a real oh shit moment because I had no plan.
Yeah.
I mean, it was at that time I realized I had no plan. And they tried to set me up with a sober living in Nashville. But I just spent 60 days getting to know people in Murfreesboro. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that I did right. Every time we went out to a meeting, I met new people. Because going back to like when I first got to treatment, there was a guy there who had a 60-day key tag. And I was like, wow, 60 days? Like, how in the world did you get 60 days, you know? And I asked him, I was like, dude, tell me, what's the secret? Like, how did you get 60 days? And to be honest, he could have been like a smart ass. He could have been like, I'm in treatment, you know? But he wasn't. He said, go to meetings, meet people, get their numbers. Even though you don't have your phone, get their numbers and call them later. If you're scared to talk to people, just go up to just go up to them and say, hey, my name's Gage. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm new. I just want to introduce myself. And I did it, you know, and that's what I started doing. And I met a lot of people and I started meeting a lot of friends. And whenever I got kicked out, I just thought, man, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have worked out, but at that time, I just couldn't comprehend starting over again, whether that was right or wrong. And so I called one person in the rooms and I got honest. And I said, hey, look, I'm getting kicked out of treatment. This is what I've done. You know, I don't know what to do. He said, let me call you back. Unknowingly, he called some people who said, look, I think I want to go get this guy. I think I can help him. Should I do this? Like, is this even a good idea? And for whatever reason, everybody said that it would be okay. You know, again, that was just an act of a higher power because they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, statistically, it would probably be a really bad idea to go get somebody who's being kicked out of treatment with no plan. But everybody he talked to said, yeah, go get him and help him. And he did. He came and picked me up. He took me to get something to eat, took me to a meeting that night, and took me back to his apartment. And I laid there on his couch, and I really had to make a decision because some of the girls that I'd messed with in treatment, they had already left. They said they would come get me, take me to Nashville. My sister and my dad said they would come get me, bring me back to McMinnville. And all of them had the notion of like, I'll bring you back on Monday, because this was Thursday night. And I just thought, man, that just doesn't sound good. And it was in that moment that I had to realize like it was time for me to really show that what I wanted, I was willing to do. Because in treatment, I was very arrogant in the fact of like, they would tell us the statistics of like, only this amount of people make it. Look around in this room, there's probably 3 people who will make it. And I was the arrogant person looking around going, man, I feel bad for these people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just for no reason, And I thought, well, I've been talking about all of this and now it's time for me to either, put up or shut up.
Yeah.
And I made an agreement with myself that night for probably the first time in my life. And I said, I'm not going to get off this couch, not to use the restroom, not to get a drink, not to check my phone, not to do anything until I make a decision of what I'm going to do. And it was about 4:30 in the morning that I came to an agreement between me and God that even if I have to sleep in the park, I'm safer here around recovery than I am going anywhere else. And that morning I woke up and I took almost the last little bit of money I had, got an Uber to a park, and I sat there all day dialing sober livings. And no help, nobody saying you should go here, you should go here, you should do any of this. Just absolute dialing, just completely figuring it out. And this is where, again, like a lot of my recovery journey, I feel like I'm really blessed in a lot of ways. But a lot of times it's like God came down and he did like just enough that I couldn't do on my own. It wasn't any grand interventions. It wasn't anything just life altering. It was just like a little bit of a push that I couldn't do on my own. For instance, I wanted to go to Threshold because the pictures looked nice. And I had called my aunt and said, would you pay for a little while if I went here, And she agreed, like, this will be the last thing I help you with, And one of the selling points I kind of told her was like, look at these pictures. These are some nice homes. This might help me feel better about myself, being in a nice environment. And I had actually gotten your number and another sober living number confused because one of them were responding to me saying, I'll take you, but you kind of have to do this and this. And I didn't really want to go there. And at some point I'd got the numbers confused and you had texted me back and said, hey, I've got a bed open. And I thought it was the other sober living.
Really?
Yeah. And at that point, again, just a little bit of a push that I couldn't do for myself. Like you could have not responded. You could have just been like, oh, he ghosted me. It's done, But you texted a second time and said, are you sure you don't want to come? And just for whatever reason, I thought, well, I need to look at this number. And I realized it was where I actually wanted to go because you didn't have a bed before.
Yeah.
And something happened and you did. And had you not text that second time, I mean, my whole journey could have been different. And so I ended up saying, yeah, I can't wait. I'm on the way.
You did not go to the nicest house.
No, no, I did not. I was shocked.
I'm sure you were
shocked. I thought, oh no, what have I done? So and again, another little fate, my aunt said, I'll pay for I don't know, however long. I didn't tell her that I had like no money because she was already willing to do that. And I remember I had $21 in my bank account. And I remember that because my Uber was like $20.86 to get there.
Dang.
I mean, just enough, So I took my little bag that
Who was the person in NA that put you on the couch?
Will Daughtry.
Will Daughtry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He quite fairly saved my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I definitely do not forget that. But so I show up to what I think is going to be a mansion, I suppose. And
Do you end up in the parolee house?
yeah. Literally at the time you called it the drug courthouse.
Oh, it was the drug
Yeah,
courthouse.
the drug courthouse. Yeah. And nothing wrong with that. Except
They're just all different.
they were just all different. And again, I was kind of the outcast because they were all on drug court. And they all, at that time, that whole house worked nights.
The only other person that was there was Tyler, right?
He ended up coming later, yeah.
Yeah. But he's wild. He's wilder than all them.
Yeah, he was. He was Wilder, yeah. And so I get there, and I'm in this. And again, at the time, being very oblivious because I had martial arts background and stuff like that, you know, I thought pretty highly of myself. And then I got in there with some real bad dudes, and I was like, oh, you know, like I could be in trouble, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, and all of them worked night shift. I was the only person. I think Scott worked day shift.
Yeah.
It was just me and him.
And Greg probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's quiet. He's to himself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, everybody was kind to me and things like that, but I obviously wasn't going to make friends. And so that was the best thing that ever happened to me because I had no choice but to look at the only thing I knew, and that was recovery.
Recovery, yeah.
Yeah. I would walk to meetings because I didn't have a car. I knew I had a car at some point would come, you know, but I had no car, so I'd walk to meetings. And thankfully, walking to meetings, people took notice of me, said, hey, I'll take you back home, or hey, tomorrow I'll pick you back up, you know. I would stay. Once I did get my car, it was wake up, go to work, come home, take a nap, go to a meeting, go to the meeting after the meeting. If curfew was at 10 o'clock, I mean, I was coming home at 9:58, and I was doing that every single night. And it was all just recovery related. I mean, I engulfed myself. If I had a spare chance, I was doing step work. If I wasn't doing step work, I was reading the book. I fell asleep to, you know, speakers, you know,
meditation stuff.
yeah, stuff like that. I mean, I was fully in it at that point.
Yeah. That's what I did my first year. Work, nap, meetings, after meetings, service commitments. I mean, just completely engulfed. Riding my bike, catching rides. Girls gave me a lot of rides, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I still, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I just gave up all the girls and took recovery.
Well, the girls that were giving me rides were platonic, but it was always girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me, but, you know, it was, I eventually had my fair share and said, you know, this is not what I'm ready for.
Yeah.
Because again, there was a point of me of like trying to fake it till I make it type of thing. It was like, you know, I'm good looking and hopefully you see all these things about me that I could be one day. And I finally had to come to a point after getting hurt of being like, you know, what do I really have to offer anybody? You know, like I don't.
A dream.
Yeah, a dream. That's really all it was. And hopefully that you see it, even though I don't even really see it. And I kind of had to come to the point of like, I don't have anything.
Were you talking to girls like that were real women outside of recovery, or were you talking
No, they were in recovery. I had the grand idea that I had gotten kicked out of treatment, and I'd come to the agreement like, okay, that was a bad idea.
Yeah,
like, messing with girls who were in treatment and around my clean time, like that's probably a really bad idea. But this girl over here has 3 years clean, and she likes me, so that's probably a lot safer.
It is a lot safer.
Yeah,
but when you don't have nothing to offer,
right, and that's what I had to figure out. And I pretty much just gave it up. I just stepped away from all of it, saying like, you know, because again, at that time, I mean, I came to Threshold with one bag, and half of that bag had clothes. The other half had a pillow and a blanket. You gave me most of my clothes when I got there.
Michael Morris gave you most of your clothes.
Oh, Michael Morris gave me. Shout out to Michael.
Dude, he gave me so many clothes.
Yeah. And man, I remember on the way to that house meeting, you said, hey, you know, I've got some clothes. I feel like most of them will fit you, but I'm going to put them out on the floor. And whoever wants them can kind of get them. And it was game on. It was game on. I mean, as soon as you said, I mean, I just started grabbing.
Yeah.
You know, I'll figure it out later.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. Yeah. And thankfully, being 130 pounds at that time, not many people could wear smalls, you know? So, but yeah, that's
all his clothes were like, you know, every shirt was over $50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah.
I still have some of them.
I think I still have some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that really helps a lot because I had like 5 shirts maybe, you know?
I remember seeing you in the backyard at Allen. I think it was like the first time you were like, I think you were on the phone or just sitting there. And I was like, dude, you were at least the second most attractive guy at Threshold for sure.
Yeah. That's how you introduced yourself to me.
I was like, dang, he's good looking.
Yeah. That's how you introduced yourself. You said, you know, you're the second most attractive man. And I was like, oh, okay. So who's the first? You're like, obviously me.
Obviously
you know?
me, yeah.
But yeah, I thought, okay, I like this guy, you know?
Yeah. Are you tan or do you tan?
I mean,
or both.
in this, I am tan, but I do enjoy like being on a boat or being outside.
But you
like
don't
that.
tan in a tanning bed.
No.
Really?
Mm.
Dang. I swore you tan in a tanning bed.
No.
I've been tanning and I was like, I gotta step my Gage game up, dude.
Yeah. Now I'm not saying I'll never have, you know,
Yeah.
like if I go work out at times, you know, like I might go
In the bed or whatever.
But I mean, it's by far not a regular thing.
I'm pretty like naturally olive, you know, a little darker. I don't burn or whatever.
Right. I don't either.
Yeah. I wonder if you're like Indian or something.
Allegedly.
Yeah, they won't actually tell you. My great grandmother is great grandmother is 100% Cherokee. So
Yeah. Cherokees for me as well.
yeah.
Again, I don't have my grandmother before she passed, she used to keep up with that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And she would tell me that I was however much percentage. But as far as having it on paper, I have no idea.
They don't like if you do DNA, it won't be on there at all.
Really?
Yeah, they exclude it because you can get like a check for it or whatever. So,
Right.
Yeah. So they exclude that DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever done the DNA thing?
No.
It's pretty cool. I kind of know. I was surprised. So
Yeah. I would like to because I know kind of where I did some digging one time on a free trial to kind of see about my dad's side, the Myers. And so
did they have like a tree on there?
but I mean, when I have no information,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard. Yeah.
because my dad's dad, like he was not a good person. Like he was a really bad person. And so like, I know, there's him and I know nobody on that side. So like the only real Myers I know is my sister and my dad. And so trying to guess anything up after that, it's I have no idea if it's accurate or not.
Are you related to that other Myers guy from McMinnville that Brandon knows?
I'm related to no Myers there.
Oh, Brandon Myers. Remember?
Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dad and my sister. That's it.
Is he from McMinnville?
Who? My dad?
Yeah.
So he was born in Texas, which is where his dad is from.
Okay.
And then when my dad was like 5, his dad drove him to the airport, gave him a ticket, said, "You're going to live with your mom. Go ahead." And he walked through the airport himself, had to get somebody to show him where to go, got off the airplane, and before he passed, he even said, like, I could have went to the wrong people because I just went to the person calling my name, like because he didn't remember what his mom looked like. He's like, so to this day, I could have went to the wrong person. I would have had no idea, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's like Joe Dirt or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who knows?
So, like getting involved in recovery and in a like doing your step work, getting a sponsor. How did that go?
I knew that was what I had to do. So the very first meeting that I walked into, I was still withdrawing. I was still sick and had no idea what I was going to do. But for some reason, this person sitting in the back of the room, all I heard them say at the end was, if you're new in here, just know it gets better. And that was like my thing the rest of the time. They say it gets better, so it has to get better. And it slowly started to get better.
Yeah.
And so I kind of realized, like at the time, unknowingly, the program had kind of became my higher power. And so whenever they said, you got to get a sponsor, you got to do step work, you got to get a homework, you got to provide service work, you got to call people, I mean, it was a no-brainer. That's what I had to do. And at the time, too, I think one aspect that's missing from that is I think a lot of people took that as like checklists, checklist items that they say I have to do. And to me, it was like I'm starting my whole life over.
Yeah.
And so this is how I'm going to meet people, and this is how I'm going to have good people in my life. And so that was great. Getting a sponsor, having somebody that I could trust. You know, I say all the time, you know, they told me, get somebody who has something that you want, right? And I chose my sponsor, who I still have to this day, because he was happy.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he drove any specific car. It wasn't because he had a great job. It wasn't because of anything. The dude was always happy. And I just had spent time for so long not being happy. I wanted just to learn how to be happy. I wanted to learn how to laugh. I wanted to learn how to be okay with me. And that's why I chose him. Yeah. It was arguably one of the better decisions I've made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think why I chose my sponsor. My sponsor was like an evangelist recovery person. So I was more of like a, God bless, if he says blue book with black letters on white pages and do this, we're going to read this book and we're going to do exactly what it says. And every time it asks us a question and we're going to do the question, and every time it tells us to do something, we're going to do it. If he says that one more fucking time, like, you know, I mean, he was just very, I don't know what. I actually asked him to be my sponsor, and he like pawned me off on his sponsee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. All right.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. That didn't work out.
No.
Me and that sponsee guy.
Yeah.
We're still friends today, but it just
didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was great. It was great because my sponsor had really good at recovery. Now, but the thing that I at least for me too, that I realized was that I had kind of talked to people who had like a lot of substantial time, like a lot. And it was really hard for me to kind of connect with them.
That's a good point.
It wasn't that like, it just seemed because
So far off.
Yeah, it just seemed so far off. Like it's felt so hard to imagine what 15 years would look like, what 20 years would look like.
Also, it's like hard for them to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I picked my person. He had, a good handful of years more and was still very active and still doing things. And
Who is it? Kyle?
Gordon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing about him too is he didn't have a ton of sponsees at the time.
Which is helpful.
Yeah. And I was just like, give me all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I
need
really
all
did.
your attention.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I called him I made the joke that like, I called him to help me pick my clothes out to wear because I was not going to make any decisions until he signed off on them.
Yeah. My, you can have, like, sometimes I've learned myself is like, I have a decade or a little more or whatever. But like, if I can't meet you, like because of my kids or because of my schedule, or if I don't have the time to give you,
Yeah.
like I'm not a good, no matter what I have to give you, I'm not a good sponsor. Like,
Right.
yeah. So I've really learned over time, like a good sponsor has a lot to do with availability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like somebody could have great things to tell you, but if they can't get on the phone to tell you,
Right.
what's it matter?
And that, yeah. And that was exactly what that was. And he was very honest too about like, if I asked him something, go call this person, you know?
Yeah.
And two, we had a real open relationship of like, what do you even want? You know? And I had told, I mean, obviously when I started, I told him a long list, and he was like, well, why don't you just like want to be clean, you know? But as time came on and more obtainable things came, you know, like not even necessarily always recovery related, you know, like for instance, I told him after I had got like 6, 7 months clean, you know, it was like, man, I would really love to have like a wife one day, you know? And so he would just start calling me and being like, hey, me and my girlfriend just had a really big fight. This is what the fight was about. This is what she said. This is what I said. This is how I handled it. This is where I think I could have done better. This is where I think I did really good, you know? And he would just kind of start giving me things that like I wasn't going to use now, but it was like helpful tools, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I told him one day I wanted to have a kid, you know? And so he would call me after every baby appointment. You know, this is what they did. This is what they looked for. This is how this goes. You know, this is how she's handling the pregnancy right now. You know, he was very good about, you know, this is what you want, so I'm going to give it to you.
Like sharing his experience.
Yeah, fully given the experience. And a lot of that really helped me. You know, it helped me prepare mentally for things that weren't even there yet. And it's not that I was looking for them, but it was like one day, whenever they came, you know, whenever I met my now wife, I felt so much more prepared to be in a healthy relationship than ever before. Just because of things like that,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't know what a healthy relationship looks like, buddy.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially for people like us that meet in recovery, it's tough.
It was tough in the beginning.
Really.
But it was more tough between the lines because multiple things, you know. Number one, trying to not overstep any type of bounds, not trying to do anything or say anything or try to give them any type of like whatever, you know.
Ammunition.
Yeah, or being like, you know, like it's weird being in there's some aspects early on that was weird because it's like if she had something going on in her life, being like, oh, well, maybe you should do this. But then I wouldn't say that because it's like, well, she's probably going to call her sponsor later and talk about it, you know, and I don't want to get in the way of that. And those were some things to navigate, but very small.
My sponsor, like 7 years, he was like, I was so isolated to my sponsor or sponsee brothers that I would like not share the things that I should be sharing with my wife. Like, cause I would wait to share it with my sponsor. And he was like, yeah, why aren't you sharing it with your wife?
Yeah.
Like, what? I mean, you're 7 years sober. Like, why are you withholding things?
Yeah.
You know,
I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
But some of that too, like on the flip side of it, it made our communication a lot stronger because, like, for instance, like I knew where she kind of was on her own path. And so it made it more easy for me to open up and to be more vulnerable.
Because she's safe.
Yeah, because she's a safe space and she understands and she knows where things are. And being able to have that open communication really helped a lot too.
Well, we're at the end of it or whatever, but pretty much the podcast is named Powerful Beyond Measure. So it's based on this poem called Our Deepest Fear. So every guest we ask, what is your deepest fear? You have time to think about it. But when you start the sentence, you'll say, my deepest fear is.
Okay. I think off off the top of my hand, my deepest fear is that I will live a life never fully being okay with me, always looking for something more. Whether that's not feeling as if I've provided enough for my family, not being a good enough friend, not being a good enough employer, not being a good enough father one day. You know, that's a big fear that I have with just not being okay with where my feet are.
It's a very common fear. I've asked about 10 people. I've asked a bunch of people in my life what's their deepest fear, but it's a pretty common. It's failure, inadequacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, the children thing, but they're fearful that something will happen to their kids.
I can see that for sure. Yeah, I think I think a lot of what I think drives me and has propelled me to where I'm at in my life is the fear of failure, but also to a lot of the keeping it between the lines of just being okay with me.
Mm-hmm.
Just being okay with where I'm at and saying I've done a good enough job.
You're doing great. You should be fine with yourself.
Yeah. And it's, I'm not unoblivious to that, but like, I think one of the hardest things is watching my father pass. And, it's very visible him saying that like he lived a life that he had a lot of regrets, and he felt as if he could have done a lot of things different. And I really, I do not want to be at the end of my days, whenever that comes, thinking about a lot of the woulda, shoulda, couldas. My hope is that whenever that day comes, that I look back and I say I did the best I could and that I did a good job.
I think you will.